welcome to Movie Ticket Stub, where we'll be talking about movie-related topics and the movie theater going experience. This week, we're going to be talking about Pan's Labyrinth. So I guess I should have looked this up beforehand about off to a good start already. So yeah, there we go. So Pan's Labyrinth is 2006. My God, 2006. This movie's almost 20 years old. This really
Want
bums
want to
me.
want to feel really old, Mike? I was 3 years old when this movie came out.
God, I almost want to stop the recording right now, but I'm not going to. But, anyways, we're talking about Pan's Labyrinth. It is the Guillermo del Toro movie. It is about it. The premise of this is in 1944, Spain, a girl is sent to live with her ruthless stepfather. During the night, she meets a fairy who takes her to an old faun, and he tells her that she's a princess but must prove her royalty by surviving three gruesome tasks. So here to talk about his movie theater preferences and then talk about Pan's Labyrinth, which I hear he's pretty fond of. It is the editor and founder of Knock on Wood, Sif Pop contributor, just kind of an overall just jack of all trades when it comes to the entertainment industry and Hollywood. I've got Rowan Wood here. Rowan, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going well, Mike. It's a pleasure to be on. We were talking beforehand about how it's been so long since we actually spoke to each other, and yet I hear you every week talking about Daredevil, and so I feel like I'm talking to you and having a conversation every week, even though, it's not actually, there's no actual
It's
conversation to be had.
yeah, even though it's not directly, we like to think that we're speaking to somebody out there and hopefully somebody agrees with some of our Daredevil takes, or maybe it's a case where it's like, Mike, what are you thinking? Like what are you talking about
Hey,
when it comes to
sometimes it can be
Daredevil?
both. You never know.
That is very true.
Yeah.
So I invited Rowan on because, correct me if I'm wrong, Pan's Labyrinth is your favorite, if not one of your favorite movies.
It is, it's long been like ever since I had an idea of what like favorite movies were, like because I was, I've been watching movies my whole life, but I really, really got into movies in high school.
Mhm.
And Pan's Labyrinth was like one of those movies that I saw early on in my obsession that just floored me in a way that I hadn't really been floored before. And I think those feelings have carried over every subsequent time I've watched it. And that really like that made it instantly like my favorite movie. And I've just always said it's my favorite movie because it's like that's a really hard thing to qualify. But also, Pan's Labyrinth is such an incredible film that I admire from every angle, and so there's no reason that I shouldn't say it's my favorite movie. I also think it's a pretty fun pick. Like, I feel like not
Mhm.
a lot of people, I know it's fairly well known in terms of movies, and like there are more obscure movies that I could say, but I just think that that is a really cool pick for a favorite movie. So I've just been saying it for years.
I absolutely agree with you because when I went to go see it, I got to see it in theaters. I had to drive about 45 minutes from my college town to go see it because it wasn't playing in our local theater. But it checks all the things that I was looking for in a movie theater going experience. It checks the spectacle, it checks an invigorating story, and man, it is way more gruesome than I thought it was going to be, which we'll
Hmm.
talk about a little bit later. But
Yeah.
before we talk about Pan's Labyrinth, I want to talk to you a little bit about your movie theater preferences, I guess. And then also just you've worked at a movie theater as well.
I
So
did.
just any fun stories that you have there. So let's start with this. When you're looking to go pick or go watch a movie in a movie theater, what's the first thing that you look for? Is it distance? Is it price? Is it availability of a particular movie? What is it? What's the first thing that you look for when it comes to a movie theater if you're looking to watch a movie?
It's honestly like, I mean, that's changed over the years, of course, as I've, gained more independence and, like wherewithal to get to a movie theater by myself. Because that is, I like, for those of you who don't know and can't see me and don't know me, I am like a young person and have not, like had my driver's license, like I've had my driver's license since like 2019. And so that is not a super long time to have it. And of course, the world changed very much
just
in that
just a
time
little
frame,
bit. Yeah.
just a little bit. And so honestly, I think the thing that's carried over through all that time is like and this is gonna sound like a dirty word like in this context, but like convenience. And I feel like
That's
the word
I don't think that's
convenience,
dirt. I don't think that's dirty at all. I think
right.
that makes
I
sense.
I feel like you could interpret it as me, like not really caring about any part of this process, and I do. I care very much about this process. But I grew up on Cape Cod, which is a like there are not too many movie theaters there. And it's, not super easy to, like, if you want to see, limited run qualifier movies that are playing for Oscars, you're not going to find them there. And that's why part of why I love living in LA.
Hmm.
But basically, like when I was living there, growing up, it was really, if there's a movie playing, like wide release stuff, all of that came to a couple different theaters. But it's really like, is there a time that works? Is it playing at one of the theaters? Like, do I have a way to get there? And it's those three things really. But living here in Los Angeles, those are like a lot of those things are not really factors. Like everything is playing all the time, and if
Hmm.
I want to see, if I want to see like Aliens on any given weekend, I could just like I virtually guarantee it. There's a theater playing it at this week or like sometime in the months surrounding it. But yeah, I honestly like mostly, so I have AMC A-list because I don't have a lot of money because I'm, I'm a young person living in LA.
Right.
And so most of the movies I try to see mostly at AMC because movies are so expensive nowadays. Like it is, I know that is a tired discussion, but movies are so expensive. And when I keep seeing all of these theater companies being like, we're putting slides and zip lines and like like buffets inside our movie theaters to make people come. I just keep circling back to like just knock $10 off the ticket price. Movies should be no more than like $15.
Hmm.
And like the fact that to see a movie in, at an AMC is like 21 or $22, like a regular
Yeah, I,
movie,
I was about to say that's
crazy.
a regular movie that's not IMAX screening. That might be like a matinee
Right.
screening, not so much one like at night, and
Hmm.
that's like during the week as well. That's not
Right.
like because I remember when I lived in LA, the kind of the shock value that I had when it came to like movie ticket prices, because LA was the first place that I lived where I had to pick my seat. And now
Hmm.
that's like standard across the board.
Right.
And I get why they did it because they want to make sure that they're maximizing all the seats in the theaters, but also they want to make sure that people are ponying up the money and making sure that like even like young kids, there's no like difference in price when it
Hmm.
comes to movie tickets. It's like, nope, you got to pay for a seat for them as well. And
Right.
it's also a bit of a deterrent as well.
Yeah.
Don't bring little kids to, certain movies, which is partially what my story is about. So when it comes to Pan's Labyrinth, but so you answered one of my other questions as well, is that if you prefer AMC or Regal, do you have any other movie theaters that you went to a lot as, a kid 10 minutes ago? Or if there is just any theaters in LA or at home that you're just the most fond of?
So AMC is my chain of choice out
Mhm.
here in LA. Back home, it was there were only two chains on all of Cape Cod, and one of them was a Regal, and so I would and that one was near where I went to high school, and so I would go to that semi-frequently, especially in the last couple years of school. But I have always loved independent theaters. I think independent theaters are so fun to go to, and even like quasi-independent theaters, like local chains or like little groups that are spread across like a regional area.
Mhm.
My favorite indie theaters, I mean, we'll get there very soon, but I worked at a movie theater for almost a decade in my hometown of Chatham called the Chatham Orpheum Theater. It's an amazing place and I love it so much, and I always go whenever I visit home. And out here in LA, I want to shout out the Arrow Theater. That's one of the three American Cinematheque theaters that I've gone to a bunch of times. I'm going to a screening of I don't know when this is coming out, but I'm going to a screening of Drop there a week from today, which I'm very excited about. And the Frida Cinema in Orange County, we
Mhm.
just saw a Scott Pilgrim picture show
Oh,
the other
nice.
night, like a Rocky Horror style like interactive thing. The interactivity was not the most fun part of it. The most fun part of it was going to it with people I love and just enjoying a movie that we all love. But like they have just a really amazing slate of programming. They're doing a Scooby-Doo marathon of the 2002 and 2004 movies for the weekend of 420, which I think is incredibly fun. I'm gonna
Hmm.
try to go. And yeah, I just like I was telling, maybe future friend of the show, Davis, and my partner in life, Davis, earlier today that like I love movies. Like I think movies are just the best, and I'm less picky than I think a lot of people are about things to do with movie theaters. Like I am not like I like, when seats are comfy, but I'm not like I don't, necessarily care for all of the accoutrements that a lot of theaters are trying to, outfit themselves with these days to try to make people come in. And it's just like I do think it's getting a tad ridiculous. And I think people, I mean, like just like we said before, you need to lower ticket prices,
Hmm.
and that is, I think, what should be the bottom line on this. But I think that this is something that they'll probably be, throwing around for years and never actually doing. So,
And
yeah.
that's sad because I fully
Hmm.
agree with you that it's so expensive just to go to the movie theaters, and that's if you just want to watch the movie, let alone
Exactly.
eat, let alone have something to drink, let alone, have like a decent seat. Yeah, it's a bit of a bummer for that. And also most of the time, granted, I enjoy going to the movie theaters alone, but you also want to go with other people. And if you're going with a group of people, sometimes it just gets even more expensive. So that's a bummer too.
Yeah. No, I fully agree.
So, talking about some other movie theater preferences, do you have a snack of choice or a drink of choice depending on the movie theater you go to? Jump back in. So the question that I have for you is, do you have a preference on snacks, food, drinks, anything in particular, knowing that it is dependent on theater because
Mhm.
some theaters have Pepsi, some theaters have Coke, but is there just kind of anything that your usual go-to for snacks, food, or drinks?
So fun thing about me is that I don't drink anything apart from water, so the drinks are never really a problem for me. Mostly just get popcorn, and I know that is might sound a little boring, but I mean it's the movie snack for a reason. Like it
Oh
is
yeah, for
kind of
sure.
unmatched because not only does it satiate like hunger, it also makes you feel bad if you eat too much of it, and it in turn also makes you hungrier. So
Exactly.
it is really like perfectly designed to be consumed. I mean, popcorn entertainment is a great term because you're just shoveling popcorn into your mouth,
Hmm.
without really regard for anything, which I've been I've been the self-inflicted victim of many times. But like sometimes I get candy, but it always comes back to popcorn for me.
Yeah, popcorn is the standard bearer, and yeah, that makes perfect sense for that. Previews. Do you make sure to get there early to watch previews? Is that a big thing for you, or are you, kind of subscribing to the no frames, just don't want to watch anything?
I'm kind of right down the middle. Like I enjoy trailers. I think trailers are a really interesting art form in themselves. But if it's a theater that I've been to before, I'm not gonna rush. Like if it's a
Mhm.
theater that I get to, like our AMC is like 10 minutes away, I will leave, like 5 minutes before the projected showtime because I know how long the trailers are and I know where to park and I know everything and it's very easy to get there. If it's a theater I've never been to before, I make sure to leave extra special early
Mhm.
just because I don't necessarily like I don't know how to get to like, I don't know what parking looks like. I don't know what, like there was I'm forgetting which place it is now, but it's I went to see that movie The End that came out last year. It was like one of the only theaters in our area that was playing The End. And so I went there and I had to park in this like it seemed like there were like 12 floors of this parking structure, and then I had to figure out where to get to the mall from the parking structure and
Yep.
where in the mall the AMC was. And so I just try to avoid situations like that by putting plenty of time. And it turns out I was the only person in that theater, so
Mhm.
that was fun. I got to like walk around in that theater and just like, because it was a giant screen, so I could see it. Sorry, see it from like, which seat I could. My God, my brain just stopped working for half a second. I could see what the screen looked like from all different parts of the theater,
Mhm.
and that was fun. I'm never a person, I will say, I will never use my phone in a theater, and I will never be annoying to anyone else unless I'm alone, and the only person I could be annoying to is myself. Then I will maybe like react verbally and stuff like that, just because I can, and because no one's getting hurt by it.
That's actually a question that I did have on this, is that
Mhm.
audience participation, and not talking about like a 4D experience, or if there's something that does require audience
Right,
participation
like that
from a,
Scott Pilgrim like
yeah,
picture show style that
but
I mentioned
I'm
earlier.
talking about clapping, I'm talking about cheering, I'm talking about all that stuff during a movie. Yay or nay?
Well, I was 16 when Avengers Endgame came out, and I don't think that experience would have been complete without the cheers and applause.
That is different though,
Okay,
because
okay, okay.
that is 10 plus years
Right. Well,
of
no, you're right. But like, with like Star Wars The Force Awakens, like I just turned 13 when I saw that, and it was like the audience reactions were a part of the experience for me. Mostly, I do not love when there is audience participation of any kind. I feel like most people are pretty well behaved in movie theaters these days, at least in my experience. But there are a lot of people, like not a lot of people at any given showing. Like it's really only a couple people at any given showing, if we're unlucky. But
Mhm.
most people are pretty good about it. And then there's just the people that like don't really seem to get it, and that
No,
just like it is confusing to me, and also just rubs me the wrong way because I feel like in this age of the internet and having access to technology all the time, you shouldn't theoretically you shouldn't be tempted to check your phone all the time because you have it on you. If you need to, you can just step out and check it and then step back in, and you theoretically wouldn't even have to miss any of the movie if you just stand in the entryway to the theater. But, some people feel the need to scroll on Instagram while
yeah.
they're
Rowan, what happens if I miss a very important Facebook post
yeah,
that I
exactly.
didn't think that I was going to see or react to in a timely manner? What happens if I can't even finish the sentence because it's ridiculous?
It would be unfathomable
Yeah,
to
so
miss something like that.
I hear you there, and there's nothing that kind of irks me more than when people cheer during the most ridiculous parts of movies. And granted, I don't participate in it, but for the most part, I kind of give like it sucks to say because it feels like old man yells at cloud, but there's some times where I just give people dirty looks. I'm like, guys, we're not at a play. This is a
Yep.
movie. They cannot hear you. And it's always so awkward when it's only like one or two people cheering. And I'm like, good. I hope that
Right.
you get
Yeah.
embarrassed about that. It's it's slightly different when it's a kids movie because you
Yes.
expect that type of stuff from kids. And granted, for the most part, that is the only type of movie that I do see in theaters nowadays is kids movies. So I've kind of grown a little bit to expect it, so no big deal there. But when it's adults, like I don't need an adult screaming like when like the killer is revealed in Scream 4.
Yeah.
Somebody like shouted at the theater and I'm just like, dude, shut up. Stop
Nobody
talking.
cares.
Stop talking.
I do have to say, Davis and I saw Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania opening night, and it was everyone in the theater was entirely respectful except for a group of I think maybe teenagers in the back. I like they might have been a little younger than that. They were being incredibly annoying. Davis thought it was funny. I was very annoyed by it. But there was one moment that I thought was very funny. When Modoc is revealed, there was just silence in the theater because there was no like there's no dialogue or anything. Silence in the theater. One of the kids, like as loud as they possibly can, goes, bruh. And like we died laughing. because it is admittedly a very like it's a ridiculous design, and I think that warrants a reaction like that. But 99.9% of the time I'm gonna hate that. That was the one time, and like it's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
And of course that's opening a whole other can of worms into what movies do demand a
Exactly.
reaction based on their quality, but
It's
yeah.
it's like that 1 out of 100 type of
Right,
thing where, it
exactly.
just hits you at the right place, right time, and it's all good. It's perfectly acceptable with that.
Yeah.
You mentioned you mentioned kind of I think a movie hot take or movie theater hot take was that they need to lower their prices, even though it shouldn't be a hot take
I was about to say, yeah.
because absolutely the cost of tickets and also I dare I say the cost of concessions is getting out of
Yeah,
control as well, even though I know full hand that movie theaters make a ton of money off concessions as well.
right. I mean, there's really, especially for chains, there is no reason for these concessions to be as much as they are because they're not going to lose money if they knock a couple of dollars off the popcorn.
That's true because
Yeah.
at my local Marcus Theater, which is my go-to theater,
Mhm.
I hate it because my car's been broken into there,
Oh,
but
really?
it's the closest theater that I have. And kind of one of the things that I do look for is how long it's going to take me to get there because I don't know what parking's going to look like, but
Right.
I will drive a little bit further away to give myself a little bit of peace of mind to know that my car's not going to get broken into.
Totally. Yeah.
So, but do you have any other movie theater hot takes before we move on to any movie theater stories or kind of movie theater antidotes of you working at a theater?
Not really. I just think that people make such a big deal out of everything in
Mhm.
movie theaters, and I do think a couple of things deserve the big deal, like people talking or being on their phones. I think that deserves all the attention it can get on like eliminating that problem. But I just think people need to like maybe chill out a little bit
Mhm.
and just like understand that we're all going to have this like communal experience
Mhm.
in like a very nice space, like the way that a movie was meant to be seen. And so I think people just like need to relax and understand that like everyone is there for the same reason and we should all just have fun. And that is a philosophy I would apply to many things in life, but I think it especially applies to this.
Just have fun.
Just have fun. I know it's an alien concept to a lot of people these days.
That's just breaking new ground here,
Yeah, I know.
Rowan. So good stuff.
Yeah,
So you worked at a theater for a while, and
I did.
I kind of look at my time working at a movie rental place. I'm assuming very similarly as how you view working in a movie theater because
Probably.
there's challenges,
Hmm.
obviously, because they're one of the things that I struggled with a lot working at a movie rental place is that everybody assumes that you know every single movie out there. And when they describe it to you, it's like the guy that did the thing and then the other thing happened. I'm like, that you've described like every single movie out there. You need to be more specific.
See, I was a little luckier on that front because, we only like we advertised, movie theaters advertise, at least the one that I was at, like very transparently, here's what we're showing right now. But then there were a bunch of people that would, come in occasionally and be like, are you gonna get this movie with this actress? And I would say like she's in four things this year, and they would not be happy about that. But like most of the time, that was not really an issue, which I'm very thankful about because we got people like that, but luckily they didn't have the, like the grounds to ask questions like that because they didn't need to.
Right. So let's move on and let's talk about Pan's Labyrinth then.
Cool.
So
Amazing.
have you ever seen Pan's Labyrinth in theaters?
So I didn't see it in theaters when it came out.
Because you mentioned
Yes,
that you were 3 years old
I
at the
was indeed,
very very
yes.
very beginning, which that's fair. You don't want to take a child to go see Pan's Labyrinth.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, apart from the fact that, of course, they wouldn't understand everything that was going on, they wouldn't even remember it. So why bring them to a movie that they wouldn't remember?
Right.
So the movie theater that I work at, the Chatham Orpheum Theater, would, especially in the last couple of years when I got a key, I would come into the theater both at night after they close and in the morning before we would open to watch stuff on the big screen, specifically stuff that had come and gone or like streaming stuff that I wouldn't be able to watch really. Like I watched the morning that Prey came out on Hulu. I came in 2 hours early. I threw that up on our biggest screen and I watched that, and it was incredible on the big screen. And so that is like something that I felt very lucky to do. I could just plug my computer in, or I could bring a Blu-ray in or a DVD and play that as well. I I have now seen one of my favorite movies of all time, Game Night, no less than 3 times at that theater,
Nice.
because that's a very fun movie. Another one that I missed in on its first run, but that is just like a fun movie to bring people to
Hmm.
watch.
Yep.
But Pan's Labyrinth, I saw it in at that theater. I brought in my Blu-ray and we watched it one night. I think this was it last summer? No, it was 2 summers ago. It was summer of 23. But that was the first time I'd seen it on the big screen, and I would love to see it again if I get the opportunity. But that inspired me to start a list of movies that I would love to see on the big screen, which
Hmm.
is still going strong today. Because despite living in LA, like it's hard because if there's one showing of The Shawshank Redemption, at this time, if you can't make that time, you got to wait until the next time it comes around. So that's, that is like the roadblock in the way of seeing all these great movies.
The other unfortunate thing about having that kind of be an experience in LA is that you unfortunately are not alone in thinking that like, hey, I
Exactly.
want to go see the Shawshank Redemption on the big screen
Mhm.
at this like one time at this one theater like all the way across
Right, this
LA.
one theater that has like 150 seats
Yeah,
with like 400 people that want to go.
exactly. And that was something that I ran into a bunch of times when I lived in LA as well, is that hey, there are some times that there were some times that I wanted to go to a theater and it was sold out because, you know, obviously it'd be sold out because LA is huge. Like
Mhm.
LA proper is not that big, but
Right.
LA encompasses like
The county is
most
like
of
massive.
most of Southern California that isn't part of Orange County or that isn't part of San Diego. So that that was always one of the tricky experiences that I had when living in LA, is that you have to be strategic about if you want to go to like a specific thing. And this was back in the day when like pre-ordering tickets wasn't really like a big thing.
Right.
And luckily that's a thing now. So,
Yeah, but that does for like very limited things make it kind of cutthroat. Like you gotta really be available at this time that it's going on sale, and
yep.
a lot of the times they don't even give you a time frame that so you have to be just vigilant about it.
Yeah, you just have to be in the know. And
Hmm.
then to be in the know, you just need to get to know like the nuances of a particular theater, or if there's like
Hmm.
a particular anniversary of a show that's coming up. There's certain things that are like traditions in LA. So like for example, when I lived out there, I went to go see The Nightmare Before Christmas
Hmm.
on at the El Cap Theater. They did it in
Nice.
4D because, and by 4D, it's just, hey, they've got Christmas lights up, which granted, the El Cap Theater is beautiful and the Christmas lights, it's cool. And then they have a giant fan blowing wind. That's really about it. But it was still a cool experience, but
Yeah.
you also have to get your tickets far in advance because there are tons of people out there who want to go see that.
Hmm.
So I hear you when you say that. So Pan's Labyrinth.
Yes.
I went to go see Pan's Labyrinth. It was about 45 minutes away from my college town, which we only had one theater in town, and there's no chance in hell that they would play anything like this because they would only play, the quote unquote popular movies, or
Hmm.
like the ones that's going to guarantee to get people to to sit in the seats. And Pan's
Right.
Labyrinth was a bit more of an artsy film. Also, God forbid that people have to read subtitles during
Yeah.
during a movie.
That little 1 inch barrier is bongs
It's
your
just
toe. So sad.
too much
Yeah.
for some people. So I get to the theater, I pick my seat, and the first thing that happens is a guy comes up front, one of the staff members, and introduces the movie. I've only experienced this one other time in my life when somebody introduces the movie. And that is when I went to go see The Passion of the Christ, because of course they're going to be like, "Hey, this depicts like real or real instances, quote unquote,
Yeah.
of Jesus being like brutalized, and the last day, it's going to be an emotional experience." I'm like,
Right. It's
yeah,
like
I
more of like a disclaimer than an introduction.
so this one was a disclaimer
Oh wow.
because they said this is not a children's movie. So if you brought your children to this movie, I would strongly encourage you to get up, get a refund because this is not a kids movie. And I can only think in the back of my head that they have to give this disclaimer because they've run into this problem before.
Right.
I look to my right, maybe, 7 or 8 seats down, and there's a kid there. And the dad is like, "We'll be fine. It's all good." Like, okay,
Famous
great.
last words.
Famous last words. So we're watching the movie. For the most part, the first like 15, 20 minutes of the movie ain't that bad. And then you get to the part where it's like, oh my God, this movie is going to be really violent. And that is the part where Ophelia's stepfather bashes a guy's face in
Yeah.
with a bottle. So,
That's like the point of no return where like A, this guy is irredeemable, and B, like this is a going to be a not just a dark movie, but a disturbing one as well.
so that part happens. That kid starts screaming and bawling. And then the dad immediately takes this kid out of the theater. And then a couple seconds later, 6 other kids start screaming as well because they've just witnessed something that is going to scar them forever.
Of
A
course.
guy's face being bashed in.
Right.
And it's like, dude, the guy gave you a warning. It's not like he's doing this just to be a jerk about this.
Right.
So I will never forget that experience watching Pan's Labyrinth. And then when I lived in LA, the theater that we went to a lot because my roommate worked there was the ArcLight in Hollywood. And
Have I never got the chance to go, which really bums me out. That in the Cinerama Dome I would love to go to, but I don't know if I'm ever going to get the chance.
I it was I loved going to the ArcLight. It's a beautiful theater. The dome is a fun experience. Not the best for 3D because we saw Avatar, like the
Oh my
first one
God.
there,
Yeah.
and it's a cool experience, but it's a little weird and it's a little jarring. But
Mhm.
I've seen plenty of like I saw Black Swan there. I saw
Nice.
I saw Inglorious Bastards there, and that's fun. That's a really great experience. Yeah, if they ever open it back up, definitely
Mhm.
that's definitely one to go to because that
Definitely.
theater is an icon now.
Yeah.
So, but Pan's Labyrinth, one of the things that I loved about watching Pan's Labyrinth in theaters was just the visual spectacle because there's obviously CGI in certain parts, but there's a lot of practical effects as well.
Mhm.
So, since you have gotten to see it in theaters recently, what are some of the things that you just loved about watching Pan's Labyrinth on the big screen?
I observed that, and this goes for most movies released on the big screen, but Pan's Labyrinth especially. I mentioned it was dark thematically. It's also very dark visually.
Mhm.
And when you're watching at home on a TV, there's going to be some light around you. It might not be the sun streaming in, but there's some light somewhere. And even if you're in the dark, you can see the things around you. In a movie theater, like everything is black except for the screen and the light coming from the screen. And when the light coming from the screen is very limited, everything that's not black on screen pops in a way that it would not on a home television. So I
Mhm.
was really impressed with that. I thought that that was extremely cool. I think of specifically the first scene where the fawn appears
Mhm.
when he sort of like melts out of a tree. And sort of detaches himself and becomes his own thing. That was just like because he's hidden in shadow, the tree is hidden in shadow, and then it comes into light like immediately before he pokes out, and that just pops so much better when there are no other lights around you than it does when you're watching, like, not to knock watching a movie on your couch. I do it every day and I love it, but there is just like that's another like strong argument for the theatrical experience. and
Mhm.
and not to mention the sound. Like I watched it, as I mentioned, at the Chatham Orpheum. They actually just revamped their sound system again. They don't have Dolby Atmos sound, but they do have a Dolby sound system now, and it sounded what they had before when I watched Pan's Labyrinth there was incredible. And I cannot imagine what it sounds like now. But
Mhm.
there is just so much that is better about seeing stuff in theaters.
Mhm.
And I like that's why I've been really vigilant about keeping this list of movies I want to see in theaters because like there are so many movies that I saw at home for the first time that I bet I would love even more if I had seen in like when I eventually hopefully see them in theaters. But yeah, like one of my dreams is when I hopefully when I one day own a house is to have a home theater, of some kind. I know friend of the show Keith does have a home theater. It's amazing. Davis and I stayed with him for a couple of days when we drove out west. It was amazing. It is such a fun place to watch a movie. And so like that is I think the closest you can get at home to, like recreating the theatrical experience. I know I've strayed far from the question,
That's all
but
good.
like there is so much that is improved by watching on the big screen that you would never even think about if you're just watching at home.
I'm glad that you mentioned the sound because there's a couple instances where the sound really pops uh, in a movie theater. And look, you can have the best sound system that you can for a home theater. It's still not going to compare to some of the loud shriek of the mandrake is
Mhm.
just so much more elevated when you're seeing it in a movie theater
Right.
because it's so loud, it's so shrieking, especially when it's on fire. It's really loud. But then the part also with the faceless guy, and just his eerie movements, and
And
just
like
like
otherworldly shrieks and
mhm.
like yeah, oof.
Yeah,
It's just really excellent design visually and orally.
yeah. So what else can we talk about with Pan's Labyrinth? And I guess we'll just anything else that you wanna mention about Pan's Labyrinth that
It's a movie that I believe if you can see it in theaters and have that be your first time, I think you should. Like that's a
mhm,
movie, like not to say that it's a bad movie when you watch it at home, but I just think all movies are better if you watch them in the theater for the
mhm,
first time. And I think Pan's Labyrinth is like, and I say this as someone whose first time was not in a theater, but it is just incredibly, it's just a much, like it's a different experience and one that I wish I could have had.
mhm.
And so if I can convince even one person to go see it when it plays at a rep screening somewhere, I will have done my job.
So I, as somebody who I have to be a little bit more selective about the movies that I see in theaters,
Of
one of
course.
the big things that is a selling point for me to go see a movie is that it does need to feel a little bit larger than life.
Hmm.
And a fantasy movie like Pan's Labyrinth is something that's tailor-made for a theater going experience because you're whisked into this magical world. It's a fucked up world, but it's also super magical. So
Right.
that is something that I know for me when I look for something to go see at the theaters because, like we talked about, it's expensive and time, unfortunately, is tricky to come by when it
Hmm.
comes to the movie theater going experience as well. There's something about being whisked away into this fantastical world that I know I really enjoyed when I saw it in theaters. And I agree with you that if there's ever a chance to go see something in theaters, to take it because also it's a world of difference seeing it, when you see something and you experience the reactions with other people, it's it's a way kind of like validating that like, oh, we're all having the same experience, we're all having the same reaction, but also it's just a very fun communal experience, even if somebody starts crying in the middle of the theater or they who like woot and holler, whatever. So
Right.
so
Yeah.
there is that. Rowan, do you want to? What are last question I have for you before
Yeah.
I'll get you out of here? What are some other movies that are on your list of ones that you want to see in theaters?
Let's find out. I know all of the Star Wars movies I haven't seen in theaters are on there, which is, let me see, movies I want to see in a theater. The Star Wars movies that are on there are the original and Return of the Jedi. I've seen all the other ones in theaters, and yeah, the Empire Strikes Back is only not on here because I saw a concert version, and that was essentially a theatrical version.
Yeah.
But I have all of the Cornetto trilogy on there. I have Wally. I never saw Wally in a theater, at least that I know of. If I did, I do not remember it. All That Jazz. I don't know if you've seen have you seen All That Jazz?
Yeah.
I cannot imagine how hard that movie would go in a theater.
Hmm.
Because I have to say, when you're at home, there is always, even if it is in another room, there is always the pull to look at your phone.
Yep.
Always. Even if you are so into a movie, it is omnipresent, even if you are so fully dedicated to it. That is always the thing, always. And that is just the world we live in, and it sucks and I hate it. But it is how it is. All That Jazz, a movie that I tried very hard not to look at my phone during when I saw it for the first time. I think it would be incredible in a theater. And I'll just rattle off a couple more. Watchmen, Zack Snyder's Watchmen, I like more than the average person. Schindler's List, I rewatched that recently. One of my all-time favorites, I think.
Hmm.
A movie that I think its power would be like multiplied by 10 in a theater. And The Princess Bride. Love The Princess Bride. And these are just a couple of my. There are currently 36 movies on the list. If I sat down and expanded it, I'm sure it would be more.
Hmm.
But yeah, like these are like there are so many movies that I think I would just love all the more. Like
Hmm.
even not love, but just like appreciate all the more if all of those if like every single aspect was isolated, which I feel like it is in the movie theater. Like that is
Hmm.
what it's all you have to focus on. You appreciate it more, even if it's a movie that's not great. It is like infinitely amplified by the theatrical experience, and that's why we should keep movie theaters around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Who was it? Sean Baker said that
Hmm.
pretty spectacularly at the Oscars this year.
Yeah.
Keep the movie theater experience alive, but that starts with lowering prices on things and, just upgrading on certain things just to make the experience all the more comfortable for
Exactly.
people. So,
Yeah. Support your local indie cinema too. I worked at a two-screen indie cinema for 8 years, and it
mhm,
was like it was the first job I ever had, and it was the best job I've ever had. And I loved it so much. And just like remember that those people who are working there, a lot of them love movies, and a lot of them are excited to, to get you into the theater. So
mhm,
like support these places and so they can keep on surviving, like
mhm,
that's my dad is the editor of our local like you know newspaper, and so I'm very dialed into like journalism. Print journalism is so rare, and it's like we need to protect it, and I think the same is true with the indie cinema experience. And I'll give you a cheat here. Indie cinemas often have lower ticket prices than any chains,
mhm.
so even more of an incentive to go there.
That is very true. And around me there is one kind of like independent theater, like a small like two-screen theater. The other one shut down event, unfortunately. And that sucked because that was always a fun place to go. And I was looking forward to taking both my daughters there, but
Mhm.
that one theater closed. The other one I still have a chance because that was the theater that saw like a bunch. I saw movies like Can't Hardly Wait there and
Mhm.
saw
Right.
I Know What You Did Last Summer when it was like kosher for a guy to walk down the center aisle dressed up as the guy, like the main killer from that. And that was like, oh, this is so cool. But like now it's like, dude, what are
Am
you
I
doing?
am I gonna get stabbed?
Yeah, like, dude, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
please stop. But
Right.
all of this to say, yeah, for sure. Go support your local theaters. And if you have a chance to check something out in theaters, definitely do so. But Rowan, thank you very much for coming on and talking about Pan's Labyrinth and just the movie theater going experience for yourself. Do you have anything that you want to plug? And where can the people find you if they want to continue the conversation and read some of your excellent articles that are on your website?
Well, that's very kind of you to say. You can find most of my writing a lot of the time at Knock on Wood Film. That is Knock on Wood, my website that many of our friends and fellow podcast hosts and guests are
Mhm.
also involved in. And I don't know, rowing a boat on Letterboxd and Instagram. You can listen to Runtime Babe, which is another podcast I do with Davis, who has been mentioned a couple of times throughout this episode. And yeah, I mean those are the things I got going right now. There might be another podcast in the future, but you know, who knows? We're busy. We don't all have time like you, Mike, when we could start just another thing here and there, willy-nilly.
What are you talking about? I don't have time. I'm a sadist. Like that is exactly
Exactly.
what this boils down to. But check out Rowan's writing and then Rowan's podcast as well.
Oh,
Um,
and franchise Paradiso, of course. I can't believe I, with friends of the show Foster and Heath, I feel like I should be like properly admonished for not remembering that earlier. That's should be in our even by the time this episode comes out, nearing the end of our second season. So we're closing. We're winding down on that. But those are my two podcasts right now.
so check out all of Rowan's podcasts and articles on Knock on Wood. And again, thanks a lot and great to see you, man.
Of
I'm
course.
glad everything's going
Thank
well
you.
in LA.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to see you as well.
That's going to do it for this episode of Movie Ticket Stub. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X Threads, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website at spdmcrew.com. Check out the other shows on our network. We're really proud of the content that everyone's making. So please check out the other shows and continue to support the crew. And if you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM Crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. And now let's let the credits roll.